Hello everyone. Welcome to the new lesson of strategic business analysis, which is about business analysis planning. So after the needs assessments, we need to plan. So within business analysis, planning consists of the activities that are performed in order to ensure that the optimal business analysis approach is selected for the project and that stakeholders are thoroughly identified and analyzed. Business analysis activities and deliverables are defined and agreed to. Processes that will be used for validating, verifying, and approving requirements and solutions are acceptable to key stakeholders. The process for proposing changes to requirements is defined and understood, and key stakeholders are aware of and support the activities and time commitments required to complete the requirements effort. So, kailangan natin ng planning. Hindi pwedeng skip ang planning kasi sayang naman yung mga pinaghirapan natin dun sa needs assessment. Okay, so for this lesson rather, we have 4 topics: the business analysis planning, stakeholders analysis, business analysis plan, and the business analysis work. Okay, so the following objectives are the target of this lesson: explain importance of the business analysis planning, conduct or refine the stakeholder analysis, and create the business analysis plan. For this video, we will only discuss the first 2 topics, and we will have another lesson for the topic 3 and topic 4. So let's start with business analysis planning. So the business analysis approach is simply the method the business analyst uses when managing and performing the business analysis activities on the project. So ang business analysis planning is conducted heavily dependent on the selected project life cycle. So it depends on the kind of the organization or yung focus ng organization. So therefore, when planning activity is performed differently across life cycles or not performed at all, the differences are noted in this lesson. So idadaanan naman natin yung project life cycle. So there are no approach or no one approach to business analysis planning that will work for every project. So ultimately, the business analyst should understand the context and project characteristics enough to ensure the planning activities are sufficiently sized for the situation. So kagaya ng binanggit natin dun sa mga unang lessons natin, hindi kasi natin ma-ensure na pare-parehas yung pinagdadaanan ng mga organizations. No? Kaya wala ring specific framework for the business analysis planning. Depende kung anong issue, anong problems yung sinosolve ng organizations or anong klaseng opportunities yung provide niya for their customers. So, anong klaseng programs and projects ba ang concentrated ng organization? So, hindi natin alam, walang specific, depende on the types, kinds, and the situation of all the organizations. That's why wala talagang nag-iisang approach for this planning. So the importance of business analysis planning, that hindi pwedeng i-skip ang planning. All the activities nag-start siya sa plano. Paano? Ano yung calendar mo? Ano yung susundan mo? Ano ang gagawin mo? So kung hindi ka magpaplano, paano mo malalaman? Paano nila malalaman? As business analyst, ang isa sa work nyo is to communicate this plan to all the stakeholders involved in a certain projects or the program. So planning the business analysis work is critical for a project success. So when business analysis planning is bypassed, it is difficult to understand the scope of work, stakeholders' expectations, and the appropriate amount and level of business analysis required for the project. So because requirements are the foundation from which the project is based and a key contributor to project success, the sponsor and the project manager should ensure that a sufficient level of business analysis planning is conducted. So many projects are initiated with tight timelines that place pressure to address the tactical activities before the plan. The project team should avoid the urge to rush into requirements elicitation without first understanding the expectations for the business analysis process and the roadmap for pursuing the work. The business analysis planning achieves the following. So this is the importance of the business analysis planning. It sets expectations with the sponsor, project team, and the key stakeholders as to the business analysis activities that will be performed. Ensure that roles are identified, understood, and communicated to everyone participating in the business analysis process. Achieves buy-in and support for the business analysis process before work begins. It provides context to support estimation of the business analysis activities and provides a more efficiently run business analysis process because activities are not missed or excessively performed. While planning provides many benefits and reduces a number of requirements-related risks, planning work should be judiciously performed to ensure the process is not too heavy or formal for the needs of the business, program, or project. It may not be necessary or advisable to plan entirely upfront in a great detail or every type of program or project. Pero kailangan nating i-identify ano yung klase ng life cycle na ginagamit ng organization. So it is probably a predictive life cycle or an adaptive life cycle. So merong pros and cons naman ang etong dalawang to. So kapag predictive, planning is performed upfront prior to elicitation. So yung pros and cons nito will be discussed on the next topic. But predictive meaning we assume ano yung pwedeng mangyari prior to elicitation. Nagpo-foresee na tayo or nagpo-project na tayo na ito yung gagawin natin dahil ito yung target natin, ito yung pwedeng mangyari. While in adaptive life cycle, some planning is performed upfront and plans are adapted or evolved over the course of the program or project. While habang nag-evolve yung projects, nagiging flexible yung plans natin. So, pwedeng nagkakaroon ng changes. Pero nag-predict ka na on the first cycle, but on the next na merong nakita or nangyari. So, we change the plans na nakalatag na. So, yun yung adaptive life cycle. But we have more discussions of this life cycle on the next lesson. Meron pa kasing isa, iterative. Okay? So too much planning can be counterproductive. So business analysts need to plan a sufficient level of detail to address the specific need of the project such as the size, complexity, and risk level. So, pag laging Laging may meeting na hindi mo pa nakikita kung ano yung progress mo on a certain tasks na binigay sa'yo. Masyado ka nang nalilito. So, hindi rin maganda na sobra-sobra naman yung pagpaplano. Okay? Kailangan we have a certain rulings when it comes to planning. So business analysis planning and project management planning. Business analysis is a critical portion of the overall project activities. The work involved to perform a successful business analysis process is detailed, and the number of activities conducted can be quite extensive. Program and project success is dependent on adequate business analysis. So therefore, attention should be given to ensure that activities are well thought out and meet the needs of the program or project and the stakeholders. Business analysis planning and scheduling is not performed independent of the project management scheduling activities. It is a best practice to have the project manager and business analyst working closely together while the business analysis approach and plan is formulated. So business analyst will develop a work plan to cover the activities that they are responsible for performing. However, the work plan should be integrated into the overall project management plan managed by the project manager. So in short, the work of the business analyst must be included in the project management planning. So as a whole of the organization, it must be reported to the top management na ito yung work ng business analyst, ito yung kailangan ng business analyst na dapat naiintindihan din ng project manager. Okay? Kaya they should be closely working together. Okay? Para as a whole, may teamwork for the organizations. Nagkakaintindihan na kailangan ni business analyst nito, kailangan din ng project manager nito. Okay? The next one is the stakeholder analysis. So dun sa needs assessment, we actually define the roles of the stakeholders, diba? Kung sino ang magiging affected ng projects or the program. So in this lesson naman, ano yung kailangan na i-conduct ng stakeholders? Okay? I-analyze na natin yung role ng stakeholders, paano dapat planuhin, okay? Yung role nila. And for that, they conduct or refine the stakeholder analysis. So stakeholder, as we have defined earlier, is an individual, group, or organization who may be affected, or perceive itself to be affected by a decision, activity, or outcome of a program or project. So stakeholder analysis is a technique used to systematically gather and analyze quantitative and qualitative information to determine whose interests should be taken into account throughout the project. So stakeholder analysis is often conducted during the planning phase so that the project team can understand that the stakeholder impacts and influences on the business analysis process are early as possible. Stakeholder analysis is performed iteratively and is revisited throughout the project as the stakeholders are discovered or existing stakeholders are determined to no longer be impacted by the proposed solution. So, Siyempre, hindi naman agad-agad nakikita natin, no, kung ano ang mangyayari dun sa program or project. So, as the program or projects evolve, nagkakaroon ng discovery na sa stakeholders na to ay can be affected by the project. So, nagkakaroon ng changes doon sa planned, scheduled, or the stakeholder analysis. So project managers use stakeholder analysis to assess how the stakeholder groups will influence and impact their project work. So, hindi lang kasi syempre isa or isang unit ang pwedeng maging affected ng project or program. Pwede kasing isang buong organizations na can be affected ng projects or a program, di ba? So, a business analyst use the results to understand how the stakeholders will impact the business analysis process. So you as the business analyst considers a number of stakeholders' characteristics before determining how to best conduct the business analysis activities. Kasi kailangan nyo yang i-communicate sa mga stakeholders. Kasi sila yung magiging collaborators nyo kung ano ang gagawin sa programs and project. Diba? Kayo ay taga-communicate ano ang mangyayari sa programs and projects, but hindi kayo yung talagang gagawa, di ba? So, yung mga affected, sino yung mga gagawa involved on a certain project or program, kailangan ma-set yung expectations nila para sa project. So, kailangan nyo ng clear communications with all the stakeholders. Kaya ginagawa yung stakeholders analysis. Kasi kung sobrang dami, kailangan i-group mo yung stakeholders according to depende, no? We have the next, I think that is the next topic, the techniques. Yan, the techniques for identifying stakeholders. So, kailangan i-group mo yung stakeholders kung sobrang dami sila. Okay, so we have these different techniques. So the discovery approach may be as simple as asking other stakeholders for input. So existing documentations, kagaya ng organizational charts or process flow, pwede nating ma-identify yung groups na belong sa ganitong area. Yung sa kabila naman ay sila, itong mga tao na to. Yan. So, pwede nyo makita sa organizational chart or sa process flow. Okay. Common techniques that can be used in the discovery of stakeholders are brainstorming, decomposition modeling, interviews, surveys, or organizational modeling. Yan yung ilan sa mga pwedeng nyong gamitin na techniques, but we will further discuss about brainstorming and organizational charts. For the brainstorming, it is a data gathering technique that can be used to identify a list of ideas in a short period of time. Siyempre, kagaya nung ginagawa nyo sa students, kapag nagbe-brainstorming, di ba? Nakagrupo kayo, then merong isang facilitator na nagtatanong ano ang ideas mo, 'di ba? Anong possible na solution para dito sa problem na to or sa task na kailangan yung magawa, 'di ba? So that is the brainstorming. Then kino-consolidate yung lahat ng ideas generated. So ang facilitator siya yung nag-facilitate or nagkakandak na lahat ng taong involved is merong response na about dun sa certain programs or project na gagawin. Okay? So, yun ang role ng facilitator. So, brainstorming is comprised of two parts, idea generation and analysis. So, sa analysis is conducted to turn the initial list of ideas into a usable form of information. So in business analysis planning, brainstorming can be leveraged to build the initial list of stakeholders to discover new stakeholders, or to identify a list of tasks to be included in the business analysis work plan. Okay. So another technique is organizational charts. An organizational chart helps with stakeholders discovery. Siyempre, nandun na lahat, di ba? Sino yung tao sa isang unit or sa isang organization, sino yung head, under that head, sino-sino yung mga tao, di ba? So the business analyst review the chart to locate stakeholder groups who may be impacted by the project or the program. Right? This may include departments who operate or maintain a system, produce a product or service, support customers, or influence product or service decisions within the area under analysis. So, yun yung mga possible na mga tao na usually affected by a new programs or project. So, the ultimate goal is to uncover all the stakeholders who have needs to be met by the product or service and may have requirements to provide for the product or service. Kaya ginagawa yung identifications of the stakeholders. To determine the stakeholders' characteristics, after developing or refining the stakeholder list, the business analyst analyzes the characteristics for the stakeholders identified. So, kung meron ka ng list sino yung mga stakeholders that can be affected by a project or program, then kailangan malaman mo ano naman ang characteristics nila. So the list of characteristics is almost endless. Siyempre, masyadong madami, masyadong malawak. But these are some common applied characteristics along with a brief explanation of their importance. So si attitude, siyempre, pagdami ng tao sa organizations, pagdami din ng mga groups, di ba? Meron sa organization. So depende sa attitude, sa complexity, sa culture, experience, level of influence, location, and availability. When it comes to attitude, consider analyzing stakeholders' attitude to identify which stakeholders support the project and propose solution and which stakeholders do not. Siyempre, alam natin na hindi lahat ng tao or agad-agad the employees or the stakeholders can support all the way the projects, di ba? Depende, may mga iba't iba kasing ugali ang lahat ng tao. So attitudes are not solely based upon likes and dislikes of the project. A stakeholder who exerts dislike or disinterest in a project may simply see no value in the initiative or final solution. So you as a business analyst, you may included in the project yung nakikita ng mga stakeholders, yung attitude ng stakeholders towards the project or the program. No? Consider mo din yun kung baka kasi meron silang enough reason or suggestions kung paano ba mas mapapaganda yung project or program. Sometimes doon tayo nakakakita ng another opportunity, okay? Doon sa mga negative attitudes na nakukuha natin on other person. So, yung mga stakeholders na yun, pwede kasing kaya negative naman sila or hindi nila gusto yung magiging project or program kasi nakikita nila yung overload, yung bigat na magiging trabaho nila, no? So, you have to understand the concern of the disinterested stakeholders and look for ways to obtain their engagement despite the lack of support the stakeholder may have toward the project. Another characteristics is the complexity. So a stakeholder group can be considered complex for a number of reasons, including but not limited with these following, comprised of a large number of stakeholders, it made up of stakeholders with vastly different needs, has a number of business processes impacted by the project, exhibits a lack of uniformity across business processes, interacts with a number of business units to complete their work, or performs work across a number of IT systems or systems external to the organization. Understanding complexity levels will help when quantifying and planning the number of requirement sessions to conduct. Okay. When determining the right amount of requirements related documentation to produce, and when determining the level of formality to apply in those deliverables, complexity levels are also helpful to understand when assessing solution options and the change impacts that a project will have on stakeholder groups. The next one is the culture. So consider the culture diversity that exists among stakeholders and make necessary adjustments to the business analysis process to ensure that these differences are considered. So culture differences impact how stakeholders perform their work, interact with each other or with their team members, contribute to the decision-making process, interpret nonverbal communication, understand the primary written and spoken language of the team, question or interact with authority, view their role on the team, raise questions or issues, negotiate and deal with conflicts. A business analyst who takes the time to recognize and understand the culture differences will gain an awareness and appreciation for the diversity and can use their understanding to run a more effective business analysis process. So the decision making of the person will depend sometimes with the culture. So meron pang, 'di ba, yung words na meron in the Luzon area can be interpreted differently on the Visayas and Mindanao area. The same way with their language pagdating naman sa nasa Luzon. So merely a culture has an impact on the proposed project or program. Experience. So understanding the experience level of the project stakeholders provides helpful information for planning activities. So elicitation may be completed more efficiently when stakeholders have prior experience participating in the requirement workshop or validating requirements than with a team of stakeholders who are unfamiliar with the business analysis or they do not understand the value of the business analysis activities. So business analysts should consider the number of years of industry experience stakeholders have. So whether they have worked with the organization for an extended length of time or whether an individual stakeholder is new in the organization. So may impact din kasi siya. So the level of influence is the next. So we have to understand the amount of influence a stakeholder has within the organization, helps to identify where influence can serve as a motivator or much as it can serve to distract or deter others from embracing the work of the project team. So, kailangan ma-analyze yun ng isang business analyst yung level ng influence ng isang tao. Okay? Yung influence is not solely associated to a person's rank reporting structure or job title. Okay, a person's level of influence is also affected by the business relationships or yung reputation o kaya yung knowledge or yung level of experience niya or yung success within the organization. So analyze the level of influence to understand the power an individual or stakeholders possesses. So pwede kasi siyang it's either influensyahan niya to support the project or to dislike the project. Diba? So location and availability. A global workforce and an increase in the number of organizations supporting a virtual work environment are two trends that make analyzing location or worthwhile step in stakeholder analysis. So even when the project team is centralized, the business analyst should understand whether remote work is supported. The business analyst should review the stakeholder list and identify where each stakeholder is based and the locations from which each conducts their work. If stakeholders work from multiple locations, then the frequency that stakeholders work from each location should be noted. Location affects a number of business analysis planning decision, kagaya ng determining the technique that are most effective to elicit requirements, estimating how much time is required to complete business analysis activities, deciding on the formality and level of detail required for the business analysis deliverables, deciding on the type of models to use, determining the approach and frequency of collaboration, and determining how requirements will be managed, maintained, and shared with project stakeholders. So kapag sobrang dami ang affected na stakeholders, we can group them. So stakeholders can be grouped once their characteristics are understood. So we have a different techniques that can be used to group or analyze stakeholders, such as job analysis, organizational modeling, personas, process modeling, risk analysis, and stakeholders map. Okay, but we will discuss the job analysis and persona analysis. For job analysis is a technique used to identify the job requirements and competencies needed to perform effectively in a specific job or role. The technique is often used when a new job is created or when an existing job is modified. Siyempre, kailangan alam mo yung competencies of each stakeholders para alam mo kung saan mo siya best na dapat ilagay, di ba? Kung saan siya best na magpa-perform siya well doon sa project and the program. So business analyst can view the job analysis to understand how particular role are performed by stakeholders. Ba? So when the project entails the creation of new job analysis may be used to specify the task required for the new role. While persona analysis is a technique that is conducted to analyze a class or users or process workers. It is a powerful tool for understanding stakeholders' needs and for targeting product design and behavior of each class of a user. A persona, yung personality, is a fictional character created to represent a user group or group of stakeholders who have similar needs. So during planning activities, the business analyst uses personas to understand the characteristics of various stakeholders groups and can apply that information to select the best business and analysis approach to meet the needs of the project. So the difference between a persona or and the stakeholders, that the persona includes much more detail about paano siya nag-i-interact with the problems or yung solution space na pinaperform niya, like device literacy and preferences, preferred method for searching, or the frequency of performing specific actions. Mga ganon. So ang persona is written in the form of narrative and tells a story about the user class. Persona describe the goals, behaviors, motivations, environment, demographics, and skills of user class. So assemble the stakeholder analysis result. So once we have know the characteristics, we have analyzed their characteristics, the business analyst may choose to document the results of the analysis in a way that can be shared with the project manager, project team, and sponsor. So the additional stakeholder characteristics shared after the stakeholder analysis provides the project team with insights for determining how best to collaborate and work with the stakeholders throughout the entire project lifecycle, especially during the business analysis creatives. So that ends the lesson for this video lecture. Wait for the video lecture for the topic 3 and topic 4, which is about the business analysis plan and yung paano na kayo magka-craft ng business analysis approach. So this ends the lesson. Hope you have learned something. See you next time. Bye everyone.